I hate you.
I'm totally full on Mandalorian right now. I've got Boba Fett's coffee. It's no good to me decaf. I've got my Mythosaur t-shirt on.
Episode 46 of Beyond the Blast Doors. Thank you for joining us. We're recording this on a Sunday. Recording this about 5 weeks after the last episode. Bob Iger said on a conference call recently, it's time for Disney to slow down production on Star Wars. And here at Beyond the Blast Doors, we followed suit. Jesse Buck, David Gilbert, David Amalotti here with you to talk Star Wars. We have so much to catch up on. And really, part of the reason why we had kind of like a 5-week hiatus is a lot of travel, a lot of work, but also there was a bit of slowdown in news. Then in the last 10 days, what do we get? We get new information on The Mandalorian. It's not the name of an episode. It's the name of the series, actually. We also get to see the first 3. We're soon to see the 4th episode of The Resistance on Disney XD. We get a little episode 9 news. And then you have New York Comic Con dropping a bunch of goodness. Mainly for me, we'll disagree on this, but I think the biggest thing out of NYCC would be either the Qui-Gon Jinn Obi-Wan novel by Claudia Gray, or the Clone Wars edition of Obi-Wan Kenobi Black Series figure. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Just so you know, you're watching right now on YouTube. You can actually be watching live in the moment right now with us on Facebook Live. So for you on Facebook Live right now, hey, you're watching in real time. Congratulations. So we're going to dive right in on Real Talk. What do you say, boys? You ready to do this?
I'm super stoked.
All right.
A little out of practice here.
Oh, it's okay. We're going to take it real nice and slow. Real Talk, the segment where if you can watch it on a TV screen or a movie theater screen, we're talking about it in this segment. So let's start off with episode 9. It has been a little slower. The last time we talked about episode 9 was, again, 5 weeks ago, where we had seen some on-set pictures. We had seen Poe Dameron and Finn walking on a grassy hill, and we all speculated that it could be Endor, it could be Kashyyyk, or it could be anywhere. We have no idea. Now, we're talking about a rumor. I'm not going to call it a leak. I think this is a rumor. But there is a rumor out there that a scene includes Kylo Ren with a square-like object walking on a foresty planet.
Jungle
planet. And somehow the Emperor appears. And we're not quite sure specifically how, according to this rumor, the Emperor appears. But it's this notion that you're going to have this connectivity with the sequel trilogy that you've had the previous 2 trilogies, because Palpatine is in every movie but A New Hope. I don't think he's even referenced in A New Hope. But that would be a great way to link them all together. And we talked about how JJ needs to really tie this up with episode 9. We want to talk about, let's just go with this. It's a rumor. This isn't confirmed yet, but do we truly think that Palpatine will be in this movie? And if so, do you buy this rumor? Let's start with Jesse.
I think it's plausible. Okay, so you mentioned a cube-like object, supposedly, that he's holding. That could be a Sith holocron.
But that doesn't match the description of the Sith holocron, though, right?
It doesn't necessarily. Holocrons were cube-shaped, so maybe.
I thought they were like pyramid-shaped. I thought the Sith holocrons were pyramid-shaped.
Well, that's the thing is.
Is the cube a Jedi? Is that the difference? Is like a cube maybe a Jedi holocron that he has?
We've never seen a holocron in a movie. They've always come from the other mediums, the comics, the novels.
We saw a couple of them from Rebels and everything, but keep this in mind. When Palpatine, Order 66, he had the Jedi Temple ransacked, and that included the vault that contained numerous Jedi holocrons. Who's to say he didn't utilize these for whatever purposes? So it's not that it's there, why would you not use this technology kind of thing?
We've kind of been talking about the idea of Palpatine maybe being the puppeteer behind the scenes with Snoke and such before.
I would love that, 100%.
You'd be okay. Go dive into that. Why are you okay with Emperor showing up if he does show up in episode 9?
This is the last of 9 movies in the Skywalker Saga. And every movie, it seems we have some other bad guy. We have General Grievous. We have Count Dooku. We have not Mace Windu.
But he could be a villain depending on your take.
Darth Maul. Maul's the word I was looking for. So throughout all of these bad guys, through all of the different movies, we have one constant in the first 6, and that was Palpatine being the puppeteer.
Right.
And I would love it if he comes back and he knew he was going to die. He's figured out that life and death thing from his Sith master, and now he's been pulling the strings behind the First Order, maybe from death, maybe from one of these other planes of existence that we've learned about. But ultimately, he should be the big bad guy, or even Darth Plagueis should be the big bad guy who we defeat at the end of this movie, which would put a nice seal on the Skywalker Saga, and it would put a nice seal on the bad guy, the overarching villains, for these 9 movies and 40 years of Star Wars.
But what do you say to the folks that are arguing, really, you're going to go back to Palpatine again after you went to Starkiller Base, which was basically a Death Star again? You had, it's
it kind of fits the motive. We know that Palpatine loves great big super weapons that are planet or moon-sized. So it's not necessarily that far of a stretch.
And that is including the rumor. I don't know if I touched on that yet, but there's like some super weapon hinted at, which that's kind of like the Star Wars mode. There's rebels, there's bad guys, there's a super weapon, got to go destroy the super weapon. Anything else that we want to touch on with the Emperor? I mean, I really think, how confident are we that we're going to get the Emperor in Episode 9? Like a percentage of comfort that we're going to get him?
I'm fairly like I wouldn't mind having it in, like personally I wouldn't mind having it in there. I mean, it actually kind of coincides with the old EU with the novels and everything. I mean, for a long time, Palpatine and the EU, he basically had clones of himself that he would via the Force actually like transfer his soul or his essence into those clones, and they.
Yeah, I don't buy that old EU stuff. That's why I'm glad it's gone.
I don't think we're gonna get something like that, but I mean, it's just like it wasn't terrible in the EU. Like
with everything Abrams has to wrap up in this next movie, I don't expect Palpatine to have a big role. It'd be cool, but I don't expect it. I could very much see him being a holocron where he's giving some sort of advice. Maybe whether he knew it or not, to Kylo Ren, who's now kind of the big bad guy.
I'm okay with like part of this being part of the contingency plan we kind of see play out after Return of the Jedi with Battlefront 2, that campaign. Like I'm okay if it's part of that, but I guess that's where I'm at. I think it's gonna be some kind of like hologram. I don't think we're gonna get physically Palpatine back in the robes.
Yeah, you mentioned Battlefront 2 and the campaign. There's basically the Red Messenger, and it's basically a recording of that Palpatine has made to deliver to the high-end Imperial officers and everything. This is the thing, is if you play through all that, it's like, well, the First Order is interested in anything that deals with the old Empire and Imperial society, so it just could be something that, okay, well, Kylo went searching for some, technology or some extra resources. I mean, like...
I think he presses a button and the entire Star Wars galaxy blows up. You just can't go in the future beyond Episode 9 in Star Wars. I think that's what Disney's going to do. What do you think about Emperor Palpatine possibly being in Episode 9 that comes out December 2019? Let us know down in the comments below. Definitely want to encourage you guys to interact as much as possible with this episode. We've been gone for a while, so we want to have really nerdy conversation. So that's Episode 9. That's like the latest developing there. We know that kind of production is underway. Still looking for J.J. Abrams to post maybe some secrets on his Instagram or whatnot. But I think the big Star Wars property right now that is kind of capturing everyone's imagination and attention, for once, I think it's not a movie. It's actually a TV series that Jon Favreau is helming, streaming on the Disney streaming service in 2019. It is The Mandalorian, and that's disgusting. The table just lifted a little bit on Jesse's end. We got a couple weeks, about a month ago, we got that posting or whatever. It was like a description of like the Mandalorian and this characters on the journey or whatever.
After the stories of Jango and Boba Fett, another warrior emerges in the Star Wars universe. The Mandalorian is set after the fall of the Empire and before the emergence of the First Order. We follow the
that was going so well.
Travails. That's a new word for me. Travails of a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic.
So since then, we've learned that we have directors confirmed for this. Dave Filoni's doing the pilot. We're going to have Ron Howard's daughter, who was originally rumored just to be like an actress in the movie, but she's actually going to be directing an episode. Taika Waititi is going to be doing an episode. Kind of thought Favreau would be doing the pilot, but I think that kind of speaks to the confidence that they have. I think the overall involvement as well of Dave Filoni. He's, we're going to talk about The Resistance a little bit, the cartoon on Disney XD. He's an executive producer on that series. I don't think he's as hands-on as he is with The Mandalorian. So we got the director news out there. You can find that right now. We've shared that article on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now we're seeing like weapons Jon Favreau just posted yesterday of a rifle that
it's a sonic rifle, actually, and we actually see this with the animated holiday special that featured Boba.
You like when I try and like have a conversation with Jesse and he just steamrolls my setup and he just tells you about it? It's the best. So let's start with this. Who is the Mandalorian?
Well, we don't actually have a name yet.
I know. That's why I'm asking. Who's the Mandalorian? Who do you think the Mandalorian is, Jesse? Hypothesize for me.
I actually think this is a brand new character, which I'm totally fine with, because, I mean, it's interesting with, because Favreau sent out this Instagram screenshot of what David Gilbert read to us. And then it's just like, okay, so we're getting this new character that's a Mandalorian. But strangely enough, he references after stories of Boba Fett and Jango Fett. Now, currently, canon-wise, according to George Lucas, neither one of them were actually Mandalorians. This was reinforced in a Clone Wars episode when Obi-Wan visits Mandalore, and he's talking to the Prime Minister, and he's like, "Well, Jango Fett was just a common bounty hunter and criminal kind of thing."
Yeah, he stole the armor.
So we have no idea how he got that armor.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I look at that is considering that Mandalore had gone from basically a very war-oriented society to a neutral, like all about peace, peaceful government. If Jango was part of an old sect of the government that was basically traditional warrior-like Mandalorians, you probably wouldn't want to acknowledge them as being a member of your society. Mm-hmm. So I still kind of feel like the door was still kind of left open for that. Even still, they modeled themselves after, this warrior culture. So I think it's cool that somebody obviously may be influenced by this. Obviously, one of my hopes is, since the time frame that we're getting this is after Return of the Jedi and before the First Order rises. This is like Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series, timeline, and that makes me really excited and everything. So
I thought you were about to say Boba. I thought you were going to be like, it's Boba Fett.
I don't think it's Boba Fett, but I would like to actually see. I want to see him return. Being frank here, I want, even if it's just a cameo, just something for the fans. Okay, yeah, he lived. Here's the official. He lived.
I want to know how they could do. So we've talked about how it's like post Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. Like I want to see how they can incorporate a lightsaber, because something that I'm on the same side with David here is there's not enough of the original facets that intrigued me when I fell in love with the saga. Lightsabers, good versus evil, cool space battles. And so I think you're going to have the potential for the cool space battles, and I think you're going to have really cool skirmishes in the streets. But I wonder if there's a way that they can bring in a younger Luke into the series, or
younger Luke,
or if they're going to try. Well, yeah, I mean it'd be post Return of the Jedi, so it's younger than what we have in the sequel trilogy.
Oh, okay.
So like you're not going to have like a Mark Hamill of current age, but do they de-age him? Like I don't know, but like,
no, you could use.
Does the series even touch on those? Does the series even touch on those OT characters? Is it completely over here? And I feel like if the Empire just came crashing down and is kind of self-destructing right now, we know in this time period that the Death Star is destroyed, the Emperor had this contingency plan, the remnants of the Empire are trying to scavenge across the galaxy and they're trying to restructure. So it kind of to me, I think you could make it work where you have Skywalker mentioned, but maybe you don't have to. I just want to see. I just want to have my cake and eat it too with this series. I
think it kind of depends on how far the series goes, like how successful it is. I mean, if it's got a strong pilot and people are loving it, and then as it progresses, like season 2, then I'd be more open to say they could cast Sebastian.
Yeah, and I know I read this, and I can't remember where I read this, but the episodes are an hour long. You're getting 10 episodes.
Like 60 minutes long? Like they're doing with the Marvel, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage? Or like the 44-minute?
It's going to be 44 to an hour.
Okay.
But still, what I've been told, it's like it's going to be... and it's Game of Thrones production quality, and it's that kind of storytelling.
Well, obviously, yeah. So. I mean, so we already had that screenshot of the Mandalorian.
Right.
And... He looks badass. I love the armor. It kind
of reminded me of a screenshot from 2008 Iron Man, just because of Favreau.
Interesting enough, though.
Yeah, I could buy that.
The first things that I noticed about this particular, armor is it's actually very similar to the concept art that we saw for what would have been Boba Fett in the 1313 video game that was canceled.
So glad they're not wasting that.
Obviously, you know, I mean, picking it apart, I mean, you're looking at what all he's equipped with. He has a blaster pistol on his right hip. You know, in this first screenshot, you could obviously tell that he had some sort of a rifle or weapon slung across his back. I mean, just complete badass, basically, strolling down. You know, it seems like it's to me, this is kind of screaming maybe Tatooine. Just the way the buildings possibly look.
My only thing is, why does it have to... I don't think so. Because I don't want it to be the same planet that we've always been to. Like, if you have this series where you're able to do this long-form storytelling and go play in some new play in some new boxes.
Outer Rim territory. I'm just kind of... That's what I want going off, basically, the caption that John gave us, the screenshot. And then obviously, you know, we got that, you know, as you mentioned, the screenshot of the rifle. And then there was actually another screenshot of some sort of prop. It looked like some sort of like canister.
Yeah, I thought that was like a trash can or something.
You know, so I mean, like, I'm really excited about this. It seems like they're really putting a lot of work as far as the appearance, the character appearance. This is, in my opinion, if you're going to see another Mandalorian set of Mandalorian armor, this is very much acceptable to me. Like, this is not something that's sitting in the background. And, you know, like, I love seeing that in Solo and everything, but the close-up for, like, afterwards that they showed us at the Solo Mandalorian armor was disappointing. And this kind of is like, I feel like it's almost like an apology. Like, we're sorry. Like, look at this awesome armor now.
We've heard Jesse just gush and gush and gush.
I know.
David, what are you thinking about The Mandalorian? I mean, you're just seeing super small snippets, but what are you hoping for here?
I'm hoping for a brand new story. I don't want to see this delve a whole lot into what we've seen from the Clone Wars with Saltine. That's not her name. Satine, that one. She always reminds me of Crackers. You know, I don't want that kind of story. Give me something brand new. Give me something that's out there with the high quality, which looks like we're getting. I'm super excited by the director's list. I'm super excited by the writing team. I'm super excited for Filoni. I have 100% faith that this is going to be what's going to revitalize me for Star Wars after coming off of some of the disappointments of the last 12 months with the movies. A little part of me was kind of hoping that when I heard there was a new picture out with The Mandalorian, that the armor might be a little more colorful, and maybe we were getting a story with Sabine and Ahsoka going out to try to find Ezra. I doubt we'll see that ever. They'll probably just leave that to speculation, but I'm looking forward to this. So sign me up for that Disney streaming service, because I'll watch this on day one.
Yeah, I just think that I'm more excited about the potential of this series, because if the series is well received, you're getting a second season. If the second season goes well, you're getting a third season, and you're getting hours upon hours of Star Wars content. And I think there's room for creativity. I think this is where Disney's vision of young and upcoming actors and directors, creative storytelling, I feel like this is where that can take place. I don't think it could have taken place with the Saga films. We've kind of learned, for some people it works, some people doesn't. This, to me, is where I'm investing most of my attention. I'll be there opening night for Episode 9, but I think this is what is going to be feeding my hunger for Star Wars content the next probably 3-4 years.
Like I said, this is the thing is, I mean, for those that don't know, Jon Favreau voiced Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars series. Right. A couple months back, you know, I think there was actually... I wouldn't say it was a leak, but it was a rumor that he was working on, like, concerning this show, that there were going to be Mandalorians involved. So and then it's like, boom, The Mandalorian. There was also the rumor that Dave Filoni was also working with him, which hearing that Dave Filoni basically is doing the pilot episode, that made me really excited, because it's like, to me, Filoni is basically, he should be the lead. He should be the final end of the line when it comes to all creative story decisions for Star Wars. He is George Lucas's protege. So the fact that John is working with him and basically probably bouncing ideas off, would you put this in here? You know, the fact that they've worked together before, I say it's a really great combo. Knowing that those two are communicating concerning the show, that makes me very confident. in this. Again, production value looks. This looks fantastic.
I mean, $110 million better look pretty damn good.
Yeah, so. But again, I'm like you. I mean, yeah, I don't mind seeing maybe like Tatooine or something because that's part of it. This clearly says the Outer Rim territories. But I do want to see some of those other places, Mandalore, Concord, Dawn. If it's going to kind of evolve, those are key places in that culture. So,
nope, time will only tell. Let us know what you think down in the comments below about The Mandalorian, the photos that you've seen, what excites you, the rumors that you're hearing, what excites you. What do you hope to get out of this? I think that I'm asking for too much, asking for Jedi and lightsaber mentions. I think this is going to be, we're going to be in the streets. We're going to be with the Mandalorians in the streets. The third and final big thing on screen, well, little screen, Star Wars Resistance. We've had the parts 1 and 2 of the opening episode. That was a 44-minute special. We've had episode 3. We'll have another episode this weekend. And so with a few of these episodes in the can now, we're starting to get an idea of, who are the ace pilots and how really is Poe Dameron and like Captain Phasma, how are these, more popular, how, already established characters, what's their involvement going to be? We know that their involvement's going to be not that much. But I think you can agree that the tone so far, it's lighthearted. It's fun. It is definitely targeted towards children, which is fine because when I was in 7th, 8th grade, I was targeted with the Clone Wars, and I was targeted with, Rebels.
I don't want to sound. I feel like this is more geared towards an even more younger crowd than like a junior high schooler.
It's like grade school. Yeah. It's like a 5th grade, 4th grade, 5th grade.
Yeah, for the animation, it didn't bother me that much. The artwork and everything.
It felt kind of like a Voltron and kind of the feel of it to me.
Maybe it's too soon. I don't want to be like slam the door, not like rule it out.
If you're not feeling, you're not feeling it.
It's not doing anything for me.
But I think that we got to be very honest with ourselves. Is this series is not meant for you, so it doesn't matter if you like it or not, and that's just the truth. And then I think that's what I'm learning with this franchise, and I'm seeing friends learn with their franchises that they really like, is the fact that you're not always going to be the target. And we're diehard fans, and we're going to check it all out. We follow the comics, we follow the novels, we even sat through the Forces of Destiny clips. Those were definitely not meant for you and I, but we did it. Why? Because we like Star Wars and we want to see the potential. There's always this potential.
The Porg one was meant for David Gilbert here.
Yes. So, what I like about it is, what I do like about it is the fact that you're getting a very light story, but there is like that same Star Wars thing of here's some morality and here's how you should go about it. It's like ethics and morality. Like you're getting that. Like it's definitely like a show where like if you're a crappy parent, put your kid in front of this because they're going to learn some good life lessons.
This is maybe like an introductory kind of cartoon that like maybe so you got like this 5th grader,
right?
5th grader,
yeah.
It's this looks really great. Maybe they've only seen The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and this might maybe encourage them to watch Clone Wars or
I think what it is, it's like if I was a parent today and I had a kid, I'd show them A New Hope. But then if it was like decided that they weren't ready for New Hope still yet, I'd give them this. Yeah. It's kind of like when you have like in sports today, it's like you're watching, Bryce Harper playing for the Washington Nationals. And they're like, wow, Bryce can really hit the ball far. He's a home run hitter and he's showy. Okay, well, if you like Bryce Harper, let me take you back, and I'm gonna teach you about legends. I'm gonna talk about Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio. I'm gonna tell you about guys just 10 years ago, Albert Pujols. Like I'm gonna use this as a gateway to show you the larger, the goods.
Like here's T-ball.
So here's the Resistance, and if you buy into that, then great. Let me introduce you to the rest of this, and I'll give you the movies, and then when you're a little older, we'll dive in the Clone Wars animated cartoon. And I'll give them Rebels off the bat because you know what, Rebels is pretty toned down for the most part. So I guess that's how I view this. This is a great tool to introduce that next generation, and that's what Disney's trying to do. Disney overall is trying to get the next wave of kids groomed to buy their stuff for the next 35, 40 years.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean that's
that.
how a good business runs.
Yeah, the other thing is like. When I saw this, and then of course it's just like, okay, you got this. This is geared towards one point of the fan base, And then I thought it was kind of nice. So boom, here's Jon Favreau again. You know, like, and this is like, here's this for the kids. Here's this for kind of like the older fans and everything. And so I feel like that's good media, good marketing kind of thing. Like, it gives me something to look forward to. Like you mentioned, like, I may not like Poe Dameron, but I know there are tons of fans that do.
I don't like Poe Dameron.
David Gilbert doesn't like Poe Dameron. I'm like impartial. Like, I don't hate the character, but
it's
like,
not
he's
a slam
not
on
my
Oscar
favorite.
Isaac because I like him. I don't see what he brings to the story
Well-
besides blowing up ships, being a liability, staging coups, mutiny. Oh, that's a good word. Mutiny.
You know, you mentioned Poe Dameron. You thought for a while that they whitewashed him
He
for the
looked-
show.
Yeah.
He looks a little darker tone. He looks like
I don't
Poe
think
looks
so.
like Oscar.
I think they whitewashed him. I think
Well-
they totally pulled an Aladdin and whitewashed the heck out of him.
That is a
Let's
bold
not talk
statement.
about Aladdin. I'm already upset about Aladdin.
So let's talk about as far as the other characters in the show. I think for you, I think if you watch the show, you know the characters. If you don't, you just want to know the nuts and bolts. So we'll just refer to the main characters as the aces. They are the ace pilots, and we're on this kind of like ocean base. They do racing. It's kind of like this series version of pod racing. They're trying to go through rings. Anyways, we have a spy that's a good guy. He joins the aces. They're flying around. They have to go on a mission. It's great. Something that I like, all the different species. We talk about wanting to see like new creatures and stuff, which if you saw Solo, you saw a lot of new creatures. Don't complain about the movie. You see Resistance, you see quite a few different species, which is really cool to see. And also, I don't know. I think Kaz is going to be, or Kaz, I should say. I think Kaz is a decent character to lead this. He feels kind of Ezra influenced in a way. You know,
I mean, they kind of have to give him that naivety when they first start him.
I know, but it's like not having a place and gotta find my own place. And I work for the Resistance, and now I'm gonna be a spy, and now I'm gonna get shot by stormtroopers. I don't know. It's great. I'm sure if I was 11, I'd be balls deep in this series. The animation style. So animation is animation. What you can or cannot like is the style of artwork in which they animate. So I don't like it, and that's why I'm watching every episode just once to know what's going on, but I'm not going to invest anything into it.
I like this style better than I liked the CGI that we got out of Rebels.
Oh, okay. Well,
I like this. To me, feels like a Saturday morning cartoon.
I'm dying.
Like I'm
taking
watching
this key.
Like I'm watching
just gonna, like,
Thundercats. I'm watching
it in my
Voltron,
eye.
and then I'm watching Resistance, and then Sonic the Hedgehog after that. I mean,
Space CG looks cool. Like so the Star Destroyers, like there's a scene where there's a TIE pilot and you see the Star Destroyers and you're like, oh my gosh, that looks great. Everything else to me, Joe, though, just looks, it's like Diet Coke of what I thought I was going to get. Like I thought I was going to get a really good anime visual.
I'm probably wrong on it reminds me of what's called cell shading, and this is seen with like a couple of video game examples. As you have The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker, kind of the same artwork style. Recently, Breath of the Wild. So watching this, that's what it kind of reminded me of in terms of like I guess the animation, the graphics of it. So that's where it didn't really bother me because I'm a big fan of those two video games. I'm still baffled by the fact that you did not like the animation style for Rebels because I
like that one.
I actually find the other style to actually have like this. I feel like I think this is maybe kind of this is a more geared towards a younger crowd. It's more maybe friendly tones. Friendly color tones, maybe.
I don't know. I find
just
not my favorite.
I feel like the Rebels animation kind of allowed for a grittier, a more mature feel. Like
Yeah, but I think the difference between Clone Wars and Rebels, though, I'd still pick the Clone Wars animated style.
Yeah.
Like I like that CG
now,
look.
again, I mean, you have
that one grew on me.
Because what I liked
But I
about it
didn't
was
like
it
it
felt
first.
like I had never seen anything like that before.
yeah.
So I like that Star Wars had that animation style.
See, I'm gonna date myself here. Like I feel like a grandpa in the things that I like anymore. Like, give me the good old fashioned Looney Tunes style animation.
What? You went Star Wars and Looney Tunes?
well, not necessarily, but I like that animation style. I don't like these 3D. I don't like Toy Story because I don't like the way the animation looks.
But do you see how much more fluid animation today is than it was in the Looney Tunes prime?
I don't care about animation. I care about a good story.
Oh my gosh!
In terms,
I mean, I'll watch this because I want to see the story.
We will disagree on that, and that's okay. Maybe you agree with David. I doubt it, but maybe you agree with David. Let us know down in the comments below. Maybe you side with Jesse, where you're just like, you know what, it's good enough, and we're all just going to accept that it's not for everyone, and that's okay. I'm going to stop having ownership of every property. There was a time where I was like that. I was a bad fan. I made it all about me, and it's not how we should be.
Can we just take a moment to talk about why the Empire felt it necessary to paint one TIE fighter red?
keep in mind that this is after the Empire.
So this is like the rise of the First Resistance.
One TIE fighter red in 40 years of Star Wars. Seems like a waste of resources.
I mean, it's like a can of paint. All right, cool. The last thing we want to talk about in Real Talk, and then we'll jump into Pages, Pixels, Pieces, because this is like that's like the big segment this week. Not really. It's actually going to be like pretty trim. But Kathleen Kennedy got a contract extension, 3-year deal. And it's funny because a lot of people were like, she's going to get fired last month. And that didn't happen. She got re-signed for 3 years. And there's a lot of speculation on what this could mean. Will Kathleen Kennedy go to the full contract? Is this a thing where they're keeping her locked in through episode 9, and then she can wrap up that bit, and then she can walk away? Keeping in mind, this will never be viewed as a negative era with Disney Lucasfilm. The woman has raised more than $4 billion with her movies. And you put the fan divisiveness, I think, on the fans. And then maybe you put it on some of the creators, which we'll talk about later in the show. But general reaction, David, I mean, I think from a business movie, you have to agree, this woman made money for Disney. How do you not re-sign her?
Well, you don't re-sign her because she's, like, close to retirement age. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, since Disney's taken over Lucasfilm, the only properties they've really focused on are Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
Okay.
And Indiana Jones 5 has been in all sorts of development and production hell for the last couple of years. And last I knew, they had pushed back the release date again until 2021. So it wouldn't surprise me at all that they have. It doesn't surprise me that they've extended her contract until 2021. I would presume it's that way she can finish the Indiana Jones 5 project. So if that's why they did it, it makes me wonder how long or how much she's going to do with Star Wars versus some of the other management team, and if her focus is going to be on Star Wars for the next 3 years, which of course has been a lot of controversy, or if she's going to focus more on the Indy 5 movie.
I want Indiana Jones 5 to start with Harrison Ford breaking out of a coffin.
I want it to not have Shia LaBeouf.
It won't, so there you go. All right, so, Jesse, we think about this, and we've spent a lot of time talking about how Kathleen Kennedy is arguably the greatest producer in film history. It's arguable. And that she could stay in that spot as, like, that producer taking care of logistics for the corporation, at least for Lucasfilm, but how the creative responsibilities need to be given to someone who is more invested in creative. She has given the impression, there are people that have reported, that it's not that much of a passion for her. She's the business mind, and decisions she has made supports that she is not a truly creative person. For example, not having an outline for 7, 8, and 9, not having a general beginning, middle, and end. She allowed JG to tell her story, his story, I should say, and then Ryan came on and got to tell his story that answered JJ's questions. And it really should have been, here is the story, here's how and where you tell it. We also have the issues of, unless it's JJ or Ryan, people getting fired, having to come in and redo third acts of movies. So there are things that consistently happen with each movie she's touched where she shows that maybe she needs us to focus on the logistical stuff and let creative happen. That said, she gets a 3-year contract. She's going to get more millions of dollars. And how does someone like a Yusa sit with that?
Okay, so, I mean, this is long-winded here.
Oh, no. Keep it tight.
Here we go.
Keep it tight.
So, again, like, she is a very talented woman when it comes to the business aspect.
I've said that,
and marketing.
Yes.
Without it, I don't think anybody can dispute that here.
No one.
She's worked on previous Indiana Jones, many other titles. my issue here, I mean, is, again, all speculation, leaks, whatever you want to actually take, take it with a grain of salt kind of thing. But I've been strongly opposed to her having any sort of creative decision making when it comes to the storyline, because that's not her forte.
She's not a storyteller. You're right.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. Like, I would have preferred to wait 20 years for them to pan out a entire. Okay, this is the story for 7, 8, and 9, and you're sticking to it instead of getting, okay, here is The Force Awakens, which is JJ, what JJ presented. And, The Force Awakens was really good. I enjoyed that movie immensely. The Last Jedi, well, I still enjoyed it, but there are a lot of things that I did not agree with, and it came down to you chose a different director to do it. That director had free reign to tell his version of the story instead of what was set up in the first movie. Mm-hmm. It was like the two were giving each other the finger kind of thing. Like,
well, and that's the point, is the fact that there should have been a story drawn. This is what you have to follow.
At the same time, though, you're telling the story and everything, and on some level, there has to be fan service there. And I think the issue with The Last Jedi was there were things that Rian Johnson made, decisions that he made.
Okay, well, I think we're getting off topic. So let's go back to Kathleen Kennedy, and let's focus on let's restart here, because I think we're getting tied up on something else. Talk to me about how will Kathleen Kennedy impact Star Wars in the next 3 years?
Obviously, controversy with her, because of Last Jedi into present moment kind of thing. We heard that we had the rumor, that she was either getting fired or she was going to step down in September. Obviously, this didn't happen. They extended her contract 3 years. My thoughts are maybe they're going to, yes, you're going to, allow her to have a clean retirement if that's her plan, or a clean departure, so where it's not like, yeah, we fired you over Star Wars or something like that. The kind of save face kind of thing. This also coincides with, Disney's kind of been on this thing about the James Gunn thing with Marvel. We'll touch on it. Chuck Wendig, I believe, coming up later in the show. Disney's kind of cracking down on social media and things like that, and they're trying to do what I call damage control. So she may just kind of off to the side now. That's how I kind of feel. She's still there. She's going to still make some business marketing decisions.
Yeah.
But I don't really see her playing a forefront in maybe upcoming, Star Wars films.
And we can kind of see that with the streaming service like The Mandalorian, where on all of the articles about production, she's pretty well vacant.
Again, the director's list that they mentioned for The Mandalorian, those are some high-end people there in my mind. I'm impressed with what they have slewed for that. So, again, it's nothing personal against her, but I would rather see her step aside.
It feels personal, Jesse.
I know, but
it feels a little
personal. But I'm happy, if she's kind of stepping aside, putting the proper people in the driver's seat.
I think she's going to do episode 9. Episode 9 is going to make 1.2 to 1.5 billion worldwide. It's not going to surpass Force Awakens, because you'll never have a Force Awakens again, because you'll never have the beginning of the end of the trilogy again.
Right.
And we know that there's a lot more Star Wars coming along the way. You're going to get more TV series. You're going to get The Mandalorian. You're going to get series like The Mandalorian. You're going to get single-shot movies, whether it's now or it's 10 years from now when Bob Iger steps down as CEO of Disney, of Disney. So I think that's what it is. Let's finish this movie. Let's get the streaming service launched. Let's get this Mandalorian thing going. We've got the kids show going with Resistance. And I think she steps out. I think she announces her retirement before the contract ends. I think you hear about it in late 2020.
That seems reasonable.
Because I don't think she re-signs again. I don't think she stays on for Indiana Jones 5, 6, 7, or 12. She's done. She's made her money, and honestly, she's worked her whole career for an opportunity like this. You got handed the most powerful franchise in movie history, and I don't know, just get out while you're on top financially, because you pissed off a lot of the fan base. So it's like, don't, because if you overstay, it can only be made worse.
This is what I call damage control. We're seeing it across the board all throughout Disney right now.
Except for Avengers, because all those fans are happy, because Avengers literally hasn't made a mistake.
Yeah, but I mean, like in terms of when it comes to the writers or anybody involved in a higher up position, director kind of thing, like.
Maybe we're being too harsh. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Let me know. Let's jump into Pages, Pixels, and Pieces. I want to be happy. I want to have fun. I think we're having fun. It's a good time. It's a good time. And we got to remind you that Pages, Pixels, Pieces is brought to you by our sponsors, the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri. Proud to have our local comic book shop as our official sponsor. Comics, collectibles, toys, Magic the Gathering, and board games. The Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving St. Louis and this show since 1981 and about 3 months ago. Okay, cool. So the cable to my microphone just fell off. Comic book news. There's so many comics out there that we could dive into right now. The ones I want you to focus on is this. Lando, Double or Nothing. Go find that in print. If you can't get the single issues, go ahead and get that trade when it releases, because overall it was a fun story, a fun adventure with a younger Lando. Still don't like L3 that much, but liked Lando. Darth Vader is probably my favorite comic series I've ever... Like, I started reading comics on Batman and Nightwing. And then I was like, all right, I'll give Star Wars comics a try. I don't think it's going to be as good as what I'm going to see on the screen. Okay, Charles Soule's Darth Vader run, this is the best comic I've ever read. And I knew it couldn't go on forever. And Charles Soule just announced over the last week that Darth Vader 25 will be his last issue.
Do you think the series will stop at 25, or do you think he's just...
No, the series is done. Okay. He said in a tweet that it has been like that from the very start, that it was going to end after 25 issues. The first run of Darth Vader comics in this Disney era was 25 issues as well. I mean, that's consistent at least. I'm bummed, but like, I reached out to him on Twitter, and I was like, I know this can't go on forever, but every issue hit. Mm-hmm. The worst issue was number 11, and it was still really good.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, this, and I'm not a big comic book person. Right. So like, you kind of actually introduced me a little bit more into the comics. I've really enjoyed, this series a lot. I think really the only thing in the entire so far was when the clones were handling the lightsaber. I kind of felt like that was kind of a very poor representation of clone troopers. In terms of their personality, how they would handle something like that.
Here for clone rights. Yeah. Jesse Buck.
So, like, again...
They have the same soul, but they have souls nonetheless.
Again, I feel like that is, like, one small little thing out of everything else of greatness in this whole series. Like, this really was a great introductory comic book run for basically a comic newbie like me.
Yeah.
So I was really happy with it. I'm sad to see I'm like, I want it to keep going, but all good things must come to an end.
I said I didn't like issue 11. Okay, I like issue 11 more than the Jedi Kyber blaster. The Kyber blaster that Jocasta Nu used. Yeah, that was the one. That was one thing where I was like, that's too far. But still, it's like, I give Charles Soule like a 27 out of 10 on this series. It just was freaking amazing. And David judges me already, but when the omnibus comes out, where I can get that hardbound, I'm gonna get that. And
that'd be a great shelf.
I have all the single issues, but I'm gonna get it. It's gonna be awesome. So that's what gonna be our comic book talk. The main Star Wars line is still the Rebels going against Vader in that Hope Lives arc right now. Mm-hmm. So you can be enjoying that. I feel like this is the time where we kind of need to go. Well, I'm gonna preview this. So there is a Darth Vader miniseries in progress that Chuck Wendig was supposed to be doing from 1st to 5. Just got announced on his Twitter that he was fired. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that in Stash It or Blast It.
Oh, snap.
So it is, you know what? It is a conversation that you would expect to have in 2018. And I'll leave it at that. We'll talk about it in just a couple minutes. I want to dive into New York Comic Con really quick. Mm-hmm. There were novels that were mentioned. I think we'll have a conversation about the figures. The book that we're excited about the most is Master and Apprentice, Claudia Gray. And you know what? She has found her niche, I think, in the Star Wars storytelling so far. We started with Lost Stars, which was post Return of the Jedi. Then we come back and we do some Bloodlines. Okay, cool. That's still like in that era. All right, cool. Now we're going to do Princess of Alderaan. Great. That's like prequel. And then
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. We had that was right in the prequel trilogy, and now we're going back even more. Here's Jedi. Here's Master and Apprentice. Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Takes me back to those Jedi Apprentice scholastic books that I read growing up. Really excited to see what happens here. But you know what? My attention just keeps getting derailed by those figures, Black Series figures.
They're your weakness, man. It's like some people's weakness to pop vinyls. Black Series figures are your...
I love them because they're just, it's like it's the quality of action figure that I always wanted growing up. You know, the 3/4 inch ones just never really gave justice for me. Clone Wars version of Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Grievous. We're getting a couple Stormtroopers. I'm trying to think of some others that pop in my... I'm trying to think of any others that I might be missing because you're getting the one solo figure. There was like another Stormtrooper that you're going to be getting.
For the Black Series?
Yeah. So David's going to pull those up right now. I'm obsessed with Obi-Wan in the Clone Trooper armor going back to that micro series in 2003. Just awesome. Always loved the look. Love the look of the Jedi having their robes blended in with the armor. And so I'm really excited for that. Grievous, you know, Jesse's going to talk about Grievous because you cannot play that character on Battlefront 2. But to see him in action figure form, okay. I'm not like the biggest Grievous fan. I can appreciate the character.
Yeah, I mean, David Gilbert's got these pulled up over here, and I'm sure we'll flash these across and everything. But the Grievous figure, it looks good for what it is, but but they have it right next to the Obi-Wan.
And the Obi-Wan looks so much better.
It looks, it's just like, wow, I gotta have it. Like,
I'm leaning over.
It looks so
good. Oh my God,
good.
yes. Now show me the next one.
There's the Grievous.
Okay, Grievous looks good.
And then we're getting some archive figures. We're getting an Anakin Skywalker, a biker scout trooper, and Yoda.
Ooh.
Yoda sounds good.
Yep. And then we're getting the Resistance line. So Kaz, Commander Pyre, the First Order Stormtrooper with the gold armor, Tora Doza, Sonara San. I don't know these names very well yet. Jarek Yeager.
I'd probably get the Ezra one.
The droid Bucket.
Yeah.
Major Von Reg, the Crimson fighter pilot. Poe, classic First Order Stormtrooper. They look okay. I'm not an action figure guy.
I'm gonna get the Obi-Wan, and depending on what Anakin looks like, I'll get an Anakin one.
Yeah, it's again, these to me are really great. I have right now. I only have the prototype Boba Fett.
Oh, but that's like
that's
one's
obvious,
worth so much.
but I mean it's so good. Like it's just like
the white one, right?
Yeah, it's the all white one.
Looks like we're getting some new lightsabers too. Looks like we're getting a Mace Windu. Looks like is that Anakin's?
No, that's Obi-Wan from Phantom.
God, you're a nerd.
Is that Black Series on there?
Yeah.
So those are like the Force Effects $100 lightsabers.
They're nice.
They can bang around a little bit, right?
A little bit, not too much, because I would, for one, I'm not sure how to describe it, but basically you could kind of tap it and you'll get kind of like the clashing sound.
I guess Saberforge. I want to get a Saberforge blade really bad.
Yeah, if you're planning on mock fighting, lightsaber fights, you're going to want to go with like Saberforge or something like that.
I want something heavy duty. So those are the figures. You're not going to get any of them because you're just not a figure guy.
I don't get it.
But you're a Lego guy, and
like
we're bound to
Legos.
get some Lego news here in the future.
I hope so. I was actually looking last night on Amazon to see if there were any new Lego Star Wars figures.
I think the latest thing Lego Star Wars was Betrayal on Cloud City. Really?
The newest Lego set announced is Darth Vader's castle.
That's right.
From Rogue One, which is done in the same style of Betrayal on Cloud City. Has a mini Vader tie ship. It's a play set. I like it in the sense that I think it's a better way to approach Lego play sets than like the Duel on Mustafar set from 2005.
Really sharp from the front. This would make a very nice shelf piece.
From the front, it looks really great. From the back, it looks like any other Lego playset. Like it's just going to kind of like bare.
Yeah.
But I think to me, it's too high. I think it's like 150 or 130.
175.
175, not worth it.
It's a little steep for me.
Yep.
Again, like to me, I feel like that's more reasonable. Like Cloud City, I think is a little over the top for what's there.
Well, you're getting charged there for the minifigs.
Yeah. Again, though, I mean, like this, if you're a hardcore Vader fan and Lego, like Star Wars, This really does. It looks sharp from the front. This is something that you could put on your shelf and be proud of, just having it sit there visually. But yeah, when it comes to like playability and everything, it's kind of disappointing.
So that's we got our toy news in there. That always feels good when we can have everything. We've hit the comics, we've talked novels, we've hit action figures, and now I think we need to talk about real quick update with Battlefront 2. We talked about the roadmap. We talked about we need to talk about Grievous playability. So I'm gonna put 120 seconds on the clock and go.
Okay, so a little bit of an update on the roadmap with Battlefront 2. Grievous is coming November, or towards the end of this month, I think, and then followed by Obi-Wan, so that's still slated, and then basically they're done until January, I believe. And that's so they can actually, like December, they're going to be focusing strictly basically on the development of what's coming in January, so that's kind of good that on a game development perspective that they're not trying to do like a rapid release. DICE recently kind of like almost in an apology. I wasn't aware that Battlefront 2 was was moddable. You can actually get mods for it, and that you'll have to forgive me. I don't have this person's name, but he apparently one up DICE in terms of clone trooper appearance, and they were more accurate to the movies and what we see in the Clone Wars. And basically, DICE came back and said, okay, we're going to revamp what we already released and upcoming clone trooper appearances to match this. So it's kind of like them acknowledging that they were kind of like, they needed to up their game on that.
So it was like it was the quality of detail that was off?
The quality of detail and just accuracy of the armor and everything. Like, it was what this individual was doing, like, if he's that good, they just need to hire him.
Was it one of those 10 people?
I'm surprised that you can like mod. How do you mod one of those files? I don't understand this. You have to have a computer program, I'm sure. And
for sure.
Hack it. I don't get it.
Again, so I thought it was kind of cool that DICE kind of acknowledged that, hey, they're actually monitoring basically what the fans are doing and what they're kind of expecting.
Well, it's cool because they could have also sued him for a lot of money. So here's my question. So I really liked growing up when I grew up because I had like new Star Wars video games like every year. I had like Knights of the Old Republic, and I had Jedi Outcast, and I had Academy, and I had Battlefront, I had Battlegrounds, I had Empire at War, I had the sequel, I had Battlegrounds. Like I had all these different games to choose from, and that was just PC. You could also play on PlayStation and Xbox. Great. I think the weakest part of the Lucasfilm of Star Wars post 2012 is video gaming.
100% agree.
And I think that because I'm going to say that they don't release a lot of video games, and then someone's going to come back to me and say, "Well, they do." Look at all the mobile games that they've released, and that doesn't count. Like that doesn't matter to me. I get that everyone has a phone in their hand. That's not a real. That's not a full game. Like I want Battlefront 2. That's a real game where I'm getting the campaign story, I'm getting a multiplayer online experience, and I'm getting hours and hours and hours of entertainment. Okay, I'm tired of this. You know, I know that there's Jango Fett was released on Galaxy of Heroes, but you can only do so much. I know it's Jango.
Yeah, well,
but come on.
Just me being like, I thought it was kind of like, okay, we had that, and then the Mandalorian kind of thing.
And I can roll with that, but it's just like, enough is enough. Like, stop investing so much energy. Like, David, you don't want to play a game on your phone. You have a gaming station at your home.
Well,
that you
my laptop.
Right, you have the laptop.
Yeah.
And you want to boot it off. You can either download it off a stream or wherever, and you want to just start playing. And you want to get lost in 10 to 18 hours worth of campaign storytelling, and you want to maybe have sandbox mode where you can create your own little thing or whatever.
Yep.
That's what Star Wars fans want.
Well, again, you said
That's
that's what I want.
We've seen a major decline in the release of a legitimate like big game. Star Wars games.
LucasArts was so good, and I just wonder if we really appreciated it in the moment.
That's what really, I think, that's where I feel like 1313 is going to be recycled or slightly redevved to maybe correspond with the Mandalorian, because the concept art for that character is very similar to what we're getting with that. So I do think that we're going to get some sort of game for that.
Yeah, and that'd be cool, I guess.
We do know from the very awkward E3 conference that there is a game in development. You'll have to forgive me because I'm drawing a blank.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's like it does involve like lightsabers and everything.
Go back to episode 34, I believe, to get
though,
the explanation for that.
In terms of storytelling, like telling a story, the last legitimate Star Wars game that we had, like single player, was the Force Unleashed games. Mm-hmm. You know, and while Force Unleashed 2 is a little bit more rushed, I mean, like, they utilize Sam Witwer's, you know, likeness for the character. He's a great actor and voice actor. I mean, we obviously know he's a great voice actor because Clone Wars and Rebels.
Well, didn't we confirm that Witwer is also in The Mandalorian?
Not yet. No. It wouldn't surprise me. It'd be kind of fantastic to have him in there.
I can look it up real quick.
You checked it out. I think I heard that.
You know, but great games. I love those games. And while they didn't really say have a lot of replayability, like it's not something you'd sit there and play over and over again, like Battlefront, like multiplayer or something.
Right.
But even Battlefront 2, the single-player campaign, was fantastic.
He'll have a voice role in Resistance.
Oh, that's what I heard.
Okay. But it looks like it's only one episode. I guess it looks like it was just the first episode, The Recruit.
So that's what was kind of disheartening for me is they had the little DLC, and that's it. They haven't announced any future plans to extend that storyline that Battlefront 2 has. I don't know if it will happen because of a lot of the negative PR that the game started off with microtransactions, but no, I think you're right. We're seeing a very, very obvious lack of a quality RPG storytelling game, and I was kind of musing the other night a little bit in terms of an MMO. Like, yes, Star Wars: The Old Republic is still there. It still has its fan base and player base. There are strong points about that MMO, but I'm disappointed with it. Honestly, like I want a love child of SWTOR and Star Wars Galaxies, you know? I
want like a WoW for Star Wars.
Well, I mean, like, honestly, SWTOR borrowed a lot of WoW mechanics. It's just, I really feel like I don't know if it's because EA is the parent company over these studios and they're controlling the funds. You know, from what little I know, in short, there was a pissing contest between the head of EA and the head of the BioWare division. They didn't like each other, and it's not good when one controls your funds and basically, we need this out now.
Right.
Because SWTOR needed a whole year worth of development, you know, like a whole nother year, you know, to fix the problems that they had at launch. And the game suffered for it, you know, and that's not something you want, especially in video games. Video game players can be very critical. As soon as they go, no, this is crap, they will shun that game and not touch it.
Yeah.
It looks like EA's contract with Disney for video games runs until 2023.
Oof.
And they signed that contract in 2013. It was a 10-year contract. I wonder...
But, like, go ahead.
I wonder what the direction Disney's going, like developing their own streaming service, making their own TV shows. I wonder if Disney is just going to ride this out with as little as they can, and then in 2023, as soon as their relationship with the EA is done, start their own game service. Create their own game manufacturing group, developing group, because they could do it. They have the money. They have the resources.
You had LucasArts. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing is they
that's how
had
I feel.
Their own division for it, and they shut it down and then gave it to EA.
Right, but obviously that was a mistake. So
I honestly think if they were to give like a parent game studio like kind of like that leadership, I would actually prefer Bethesda to take it over.
Bethesda?
Skyrim, Fallout.
Okay, yep.
I know. Tell us what you guys think of who would you like to see developer-wise, because, I mean, like, that's what I would think, because, I mean, Bethesda, Skyrim has obviously sold 10 times what it's probably should have ever sold with all its re-releases over the last 8 years.
Right.
But, it's just they're a quality company. They do deliver. They do make their fans happy.
Right. Cool. Let us know down in the comments below. Yep. Let's go ahead. We're going to skip Stash or Blast It. We don't have a fan calling this week, but we do have a very interesting sting on target this week. And that is the firing of Chuck Wendig. So to get you guys up to speed, what happened, let's see, this was 2 days ago at the time of this recording, is that Chuck Wendig went on Twitter and he announced that he got the call. He goes, today I get the call, I'm fired because of the negativity and vulgarity that my tweets bring. Seriously, that's what Mark said, the editor said. It was too much politics, too much vulgarity, too much negativity on my part. And then this just colossal thread, he continues, which of course is their decision to make. I'm not their boss, and it turns out they're not the boss of me either, har har. I joke, but otherwise I cry. He clarifies, because there's like, oh, well, who is really responsible for the firing? My understanding over the call was that this was a Marvel decision, not a Lucasfilm decision, but I really can't confirm that. The editor said he made the call. He seemed genuinely upset at my tweets and profanity, so maybe that's accurate, and again, that's his right to do so. He concludes by saying it's really quite chilling, and it breaks his heart. I'm very sad. I'm worried about the country I live in and the world, for the creative people all around. Courage to you all. I have a dire fear this is going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better. If you hear just on the surface, and David, let's start with you. If you hear on the surface that a creative is fired for behavior on social media, what is your response?
Well, okay, so I'm not a big social media guy, but I've heard lots of complaints that he's kind of a jackass. So it really doesn't surprise me that they're firing him after they're firing people like James Gunn, who've been good for the last decade, but 10 years plus ago had all sorts of controversial things that they were saying or off-key jokes. Mm-hmm. So it really doesn't surprise me that if they're willing to can somebody from comments 10 years ago, that they're willing to fire people who are being a jerk now. I do feel bad about it just a little bit, because we live in a really cool age where you can actually reach out to those creative people. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have the picture right behind us from Nathan Greno that he sent to us just because you reached out on Facebook, Twitter. You've been able to talk to Charles Soule, our Darth Vader friend. You've been able to talk to Mark Hamill before, and I think that's really cool.
Stephen Staunton.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
I guess you could say a kind of negative interaction with Janina Galvan-Carr.
We won't get into that. All right, so you're saying...
So I think it's a shame that they're looking at some of these things a little in depth, especially I'm a big James Gunn fan, so that kind of disappoints me. But if Chuck Wendig sees this going on around him and he still decides to be kind of a goober to people, he kind of deserves it. I mean, you are no longer in an age where your actions don't have repercussions. We live in an age where everything is recorded, everything is put out there.
Well, it's all brand identity. Brand identity now is valued over everything else. You know, Disney's not going to let, and Disney's actions support that. They're not going to let an individual create a social commentary conversation, that negatively impacts the brand. Mm-hmm. That's just what we've seen. And that's the whole James Gunn thing, too, is the fact that, he made these jokes about rape and stuff that you shouldn't joke about. Mm-hmm. And it's not that he can't because he wanted to be a comedian. Okay, great. So that was his material. Fine, whatever. But 10 years later down the road, you're working for Disney. Disney doesn't want to have its brand associated with a comic that had that. Disney and George Carlin would never team up today. That just wouldn't happen. Okay, even though he was super liberal, they still probably wouldn't touch it.
That's why you don't have a Disney Mel Brooks movie.
That's true. Can you imagine Mickey Mouse, Goofy, and Donald the Duck?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Blazing Saddles. Oh, that's scary. So the reason why I bring this, a lot of the reason why this comes up and is such a surprise though, is because Shadow of Vader was just announced like a week ago or whatever, and so I can see Chuck's perspective is okay, so we just announced this miniseries. I'm going to do it. It's going to be great. It's going to be different takes. This one's kind of horror. I guess everything's fine because they're giving me work. And now it looks like he's been taken off this comic. He's been fired from Marvel. And I thought he was up for a novel. I thought he was supposed to write a Star Wars novel upcoming. And that's nowhere to be seen anymore.
There was rumored a number of, novels or something like that he may have been a part of. So now those are kind of up in the air.
Chuck Wendig gave us the Aftermath trilogy, which is the cornerstone of all new canon.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And it's good.
That's really what's kind of upsetting here is that the Aftermath trilogy was actually a really enjoyable read. At the same time, though,
You can't.
I feel like we lived in what I would say is a soft society. People are easily offended.
Yeah.
I'm offended by that statement.
Yeah, so that's a thing, but at the same time, like I do think on a professional level, he probably should have been keeping maybe some of those viewpoints to himself and not on his social media.
My only problem that I had with the guy was the fact that I would see him getting in arguments with people on Twitter, which you just got to know, like, you're going to get attacked and you can't feed it. Because if you feed it, then more people come at you.
Since The Last Jedi came out, it has been nonstop. You had Ryan Johnson lashing out at fans. I think even John Boyega had a minor lash out at fans. You had the Rosemary Tran thing going on. So yeah, they fired James Gunn for comments 10 years ago. We actually touched on this, I think, 2 podcasts ago about Ryan Johnson deleting like over 10,000 tweets. So I think that, like, again, damage control. It's, hey, tone it down. If you're going to be a part of this, you're representing this franchise, our company. We can't have you, talking like that to fans or expressing those views. Keep them to yourself. Keep it off your Twitter. You do that, we'll be good.
Yeah, and and I get that you want to defend yourself.
Yeah.
You create this art. You believe it's good. I like everything that Chuck Wendig has done for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And people come at you, and yeah, you want to defend yourself. But at the same time, again, brand identity. You're part of the Disney brand now, and you cannot negatively engage these people that are putting money into Disney's pockets.
And
it doesn't work.
Yeah, I get it. It's probably tough sometimes too. Because
it's gotta suck all the time.
Because you are going to encounter toxic fans that just either they didn't like your character.
This doesn't happen 10 years ago before social media.
Yeah, so it's just
we're not talking about
this day
this.
and age. It's kind of a different ball game. Yeah, so it's just like reel it in a little bit. I mean, like there's things that I don't like, but I mean, I don't go and hate on somebody or single them out, like basically make an ass out of myself publicly.
I think it's kind of cool how a lot of people in the Star Wars community have come out supporting Chuck. I think that's pretty evident. You see guys like Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis over at Collider, Jedi Council. You see, Steel Saunders pop out. You see the guys over at MakingStarWars.net pop out. So, I mean, it's cool to see that camaraderie. It still exists because we talk about how divisive we are. It's nice to see people, who have, all the different podcasters and all the Cat Lay fans. It's cool to see them come out. You had something?
To me, the interesting thing would be where the scale balances between firing somebody who's damaging the brand or firing somebody which that action damages the brand because people support that creative artist.
Well, like you have people, I mean, you have some pretty influential people on social media saying that unless this is changed, I'm not supporting your product. So when you have, the guys over at MakingStarWars.net say, we're not going to support your stuff until you put him back on the project.
I mean, Dave Bautista is talking about not doing any more Guardians movies or anything
over to
like
the James Gunn situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think we can all agree that when Disney fires all these artists, Warner Brothers wins.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I mean, Suicide Squad 2 now has James Gunn as a director.
Still not interested.
I'm very interested now.
That's going to be great.
I want to see what
no
they
one
can do.
write for a team better than James.
Right.
That's probably the strength of the Guardian of the Galaxy's movies. Oh, man.
It's hard to have multiple main characters and still make it engaging.
Yeah, we learned that with The Last Jedi.
I would hope maybe some sort of happy medium could be had here where, okay, you're going to finish your current projects and then you're done. Like what he was actually in the middle of working on.
So we just had I'm sorry. We're doing the episode here. We're recording the show now, and I also have the behind the scenes live look on Facebook. We just had Boy Scout Troop 91 wave at us.
Oh, hello.
So
Hi.
I think that was Tara Atwood, one of our friends and viewers, but that's funny. Anyways, so like you were saying, I'm
I think
on
it'd be
board
a
with
happy
you.
medium.
There needs to be a balance, but I think that's the thing is when you live in a politically correct time, because people who are for political correctness, they're saying, well, this is just respect. We're trying to make sure that everyone gets respected and no one feels offended. But at some point, you kind of over-police everything.
Yep.
Right.
So that's going to have to get hashed out over the next, 100 years.
It's like
It's going to be a long time. We're going to die, and it'll still be a problem, Jesse. It's okay. That's going to do it, I think, for that conversation, unless there's anything else that we need to point out.
Nope.
I think we're good.
Not for me.
You know what? It felt really good to get back in the seats here after about 5 weeks. David's getting text messages because he schedules his life
I bet that's
pretty
Tara
consistently.
telling us not to say your last name on the podcast.
Let's see. I'm sorry. I want to see who texted you. See, David does this thing where like he'll schedule on the podcast and then he'll put something in like a half hour. I mean, he fits us into his schedule. Episode 46 in the books. What did she say?
She said the wave was an accident and she couldn't undo it.
No, it's okay. We appreciate the wave.
Oh, God. Delete.
We are back. My busy time of the year has kind of wrapped up. Thankfully, the summer is kind of always hell, but we're gonna get back to doing the weekly podcast. Still trying to find, whether it's like late Friday night, but getting it done on the weekend so that way you have it on Monday morning. But we're kind of in the stretch where we feel like we should be gearing up for a movie, and we're not.
I feel like if anything, we should be gearing up just for celebration.
Yeah, the celebration hype is coming down the train.
Because we really need to plan, like, are we going to drive? Are we going to take a train? Like, what are we doing? Like,
Well, can you go on a train with your Mandalorian armor?
Oh, yeah. This is actually the thing is, so, like, I'm sure you guys remember my large storage container.
Yeah, you have a big tote.
It has wheels on it, but it doesn't really have anything to, like...
Have you got your celebration tickets?
No.
Are you going to go?
Yeah.
You promise?
I need to get the vacation off first, and I can't put that in until December.
All right. Well, we're going to figure that out. We're going to figure out our Star Wars Celebration plans. I got my tickets. I had my tickets 3 months ago. And you know what? Maybe Star Wars episode Beyond the Blast Doors. What are we doing? Beyond the Blast Doors? Episode 47. Maybe we're breaking down some Star Wars Celebration stuff. I have a cat on my thigh right now.
I believe Steve is wanting to make a trip.
Yeah,
up
Steve
here
has a
at some
car
point.
again, so Steve's coming up and he's going to be on the episode.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're going to have to figure that out.
Awesome.
We have 3 microphones.
We can share. We've done that before.
We just don't want to cross the microphones.
Yeah, no sword fighting on Beyond the Blast Doors. Episode 46 is in the books. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for dealing with our endless rambling. Thank you for listening to our opinions, and thank you for being respectful. Because all we want to do is have fun and respectful Star Wars conversation. Like, we can agree to disagree, and we have fun. Why? Because it's Star Wars. Don't take yourself so seriously. I don't. Look at me. We'll see you soon. I hate you.
I'm totally full on Mandalorian right now. I've got Boba Fett's coffee. It's no good to me decaf. I've got my Mythosaur t-shirt on.